What is going on, guys? Matt Downs with Daily Grind Fantasy Sports here to give you the edge for the showdown slate between the Giants and the Washington football team. Cannot wait to break it down. If you guys are brand new to this channel, we provide both free and paid content for all daily fantasy sports across all sports. If you could please show your support by hitting that subscribe button, notification bell, and of course smashing that like button for all of our future NFL content. If you would like to know more about becoming a better DFS player and taking down that big GPP, head over to www.dgfantasy.com. On dgfantasy.com, we give you cheat sheets for every major sport, along with ownership projections, actual projections, and strategy for every single slate. We also cover optimal cash plays as well as preferred GPP plays and stacks for specific contest sizes. We do the dirty work for you. We are also currently partnered with Fantasy Cruncher, the best optimizer in the industry. When signing up for our $30 package, you also get a $20 credit to use towards any Fantasy Cruncher product. We provide the best value in the industry. Now let's go ahead and dive right into the showdown slate. We have a banger on our hands, TJ. It is the Washington football team and the New York Giants after we just got done witnessing probably one of the best Monday Night Football games in a very long time. So, followed up with this amazing game. It is a 40.5 over-under, and the Washington football team is favored by 3 at home. At least there's not a crazy favorite here. At least it's supposed to be competitive. I'm not saying it's supposed to be a good football game. At least it's supposed to be competitive. Now, let's start out, because last video we started out, TJ, by talking about how much we hated defenses. In this matchup, do we like defenses?
Yeah, so first I just want to touch base on the game, Matt. Like you talked about, Washington currently favored by 3. They actually opened up as 4.5 point favorites. So that's actually come down a 1.5. The over under also opened up at 42.5, currently sitting at 40.5. So currently projected for a lower scoring game here with the NFC East battle. You're talking about the defenses. Yeah, I think they're in play. You know, they are carrying some ownership right now. Washington football team currently showing around 22% owned, whereas the Giants defense currently showing 19% owned and $1,400 cheaper in terms of salary. So yeah, if you're landing on one of these defenses, depending on what team you like in this matchup, I definitely think they're a viable play in cash.
Maybe double defense? No, but
I think it's, I mean,
I will say this. I always talk about how much I hate defenses. This could be the one time where I actually have some exposure to them, but I'm just going to say this. The ownership's a little bit higher than I would like. And if you want to get different, full fade them. I'm completely fine with that still. Okay, I still think there's going to be some offense, and these defenses could easily get drilled. Okay, they could, just because they're bad. 22%, like you said, on the Washington football team, and 19 on the Giants. So they are definitely viable. Due to lineup construction, we'll see if they are cash worthy. Let's start out, though, TJ, by talking about these lovely quarterbacks, and we're going to start out with the away team here in the New York Giants. Daniel Jones, what a beast he is, 10.4K. Went out and got 22 points in his last matchup, and they only put up 13 points. So, I mean, do with that what you will.
Wait, stop. Sorry. Okay, start now.
Okay. And they only put up 13 points. They're projected to score 19 total points in this matchup, TJ. Yep. And he's 36.8% owned. So I feel like that's teetering on that line of GPP cash category. Yeah. Are we a believer in Daniel Jones here in this matchup? Because this is also a pretty good defense.
Yeah. My believer, not particularly, but with the situation happening with Saquon, especially on a short week, they may rely a little bit more on Daniel Jones in the passing game. So I'm not necessarily a believer in Daniel Jones, especially against this Washington defense. I'm more so just a believer in what we could potentially see here for a game script. Yeah. So I think if you're going to him at 10-4, I think he is cash 5.
Yeah, I do. And I think he's going to be a little bit higher and a little bit closer to lock because, as you said, the line has already moved. And I feel like this should be a pretty competitive matchup here. So 10-4, if they're going to do anything, it's going to be through Daniel Jones. We'll move on to the running back picture here because Saquon Barkley, something to note, I'm going to pull up the board here. He only played in 47.5% of snaps, okay? We know that he is on the snap count. That's not what we like to see, especially if you have him in season long. Now, from a DFS perspective, if we go back to his price tag and compare it here, 10K, TJ, I'm just going to start out with him. Is that worth it?
Nope.
No, it's not. I would say in GPPs
not
only.
On a short week.
Yeah. GPPs only, and even that's a stretch. I mean, he'd have to get 2 touchdowns for really that to make sense to him be one of the highest scoring players on the slate. That being said, going down the line here, we have Devontae Booker, who literally played, looks like he played closer to Saquon Barkley here, 39.3% of snaps. That's actually pretty insane. He's also 2.8K, so now I love the backup running back here strictly because of the value option. Could easily see him play closer to about 45% of snaps, especially like you said, they're playing on a short week, so why throw all the workload there on Saquon Barkley. Do you like Devontae Booker here?
I mean, I'm not in love with him either, but obviously, Matt, he is a cheaper option. He played in 24 offensive snaps, and 20 of those he was in there just for blocking purposes. So he had four attempts. So I'm really not in love with the Giants' run game, and obviously with no Saquon, excuse me, he did have a target and a reception as well. So we had 5 total touches. Yeah, with Saquon banged up, especially on this short week, I would assume, I think he played, what was it? Sorry, we just talked about it. He played 47% of offensive snaps. Mm-hmm. I would assume he plays north of 50, but like, I don't think he plays north of 60% of the offensive snaps. I think they're going to continue to work him in, obviously coming back from the injury last year. So yeah, I'm really not in love with either of these guys. I would not play Saquon. I would be looking at him in tournaments if you're looking to get a little bit different. And then Devontae Booker, Matt, I really don't like him, honestly, as a last piece at 2,800. Okay. I'm just not really in love with this Giants backfield.
Yeah, it really is going to come down to game script. Like if the Giants do go up, I could easily see them utilizing more of Devontae Booker in the backfield, especially since Saquon, again, we don't know what's going on with his injury still, a lingering injury, I should say. Brightwell is also an option here on the field, 13.1% of snaps. However, I tried clicking on his name, TJ, and it's not popping up because he didn't log any fantasy points. So at $600, not really worth it, I guess you could say as well. Doesn't really have that much upside. So if you guys think back to the Trenton Cannon play we did, like he was $200. This is the same kind of situation. If he goes out and exists, then he's worth it, but we don't know if he's going to exist in this game. So 13.1% of snaps. Let's move on to the wide receiver picture here. A lot more solidified and I would say more consistent numbers here because Sterling Shepard at the top of the list here played in 95% of the snaps. Now these guys did fall back in their very first game, so they relied more on the passing game in this game script, so keep that in mind. Kenny Golladay also played 85% of snaps. Kyle Rudolph, not the wide receiver, but also played 77% of snaps. And then Darius Slayton played 70.5. Going down the list here, all the way down the board, played 9.8. And then Tony, I guess that's how you pronounce his name, 8.2% of snaps. So pretty straightforward. We have 3 wide receivers to consider here, TJ. Who are you liking?
Yeah, I mean, I think the ownership's going to be pretty evenly distributed between Kenny Golladay and Sterling Shepard. The price tags are so even here at 8,200 and 8K. I'd probably go with Golladay, but you know, it's tough to it's tough to ignore that first game here from Sterling Shepard. 9 targets, 7 receptions, 113 yards, and the touchdown from Daniel Jones. So he looked magnificent.
I must ask, is it just because you think Galladay's better, or just?
Yeah, I think Galladay's obviously, yeah, I think he's more talented. I think the ownership's probably going to be split, Matt. But I think I lean Golladay. But again, I think going with one of these guys here for cash is something that you're going to want to.
Yeah, I honestly am just going to use the eye test here and say because Sterling Shepard went off and because he's $200 cheaper, he's going to carry a lot more ownership. And therefore, I like Golladay a lot more. In terms of a pivot because people are dumb, right? And any of you guys watching this video, you aren't dumb. Clearly, because you're watching our channel. Correct. But also, you should be playing Golladay. You should have, honestly, pretty even exposure because Golladay could easily outscore him. Darius Slayton, a consideration at $6,600? Yes, no?
Probably not.
Yeah, I think
there's a possibility.
Yeah, and again, he's only playing 70.3% of snaps, 70.5% of snaps. So, you know, for what it's worth, he is taking a little bit of a backseat here. Tony and Board, again, they were only on the field upwards of 10%. And that's even with them falling behind early, and they should have been out in the field a little bit more, at least in wide receiver sets. No, that's not the case here. So I really don't like either one of these guys. I don't think there's much upside. Board would only have to go out there and catch a ball of 6 yards and pay off his value. But even that, you know, is risky when you're only on the field about 10% of the time. Moving on to the tight end picture. This is pretty noteworthy because Evan Ingram is technically carrying ownership. I assume this came out before he was ruled out for week 2, rather. Right. So Kyle Rudolph is right back in action here. Played 77% of snaps. TJ, I think you had the stat in front of you, how many he actually went out for a route run, how much he was actually blocking. 10% owned here at $3,200. I actually really like this in terms of value. So I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, he had 5 targets in week 1, like you said. Evan Ingram ruled out again, so missing the first 2 games of the year here. Yeah, and 48 pass attempts that are 48 offensive snaps that Kyle Rudolph was on the field. 28 of them were passing opportunities in which he actually ran a route. And then 20 of those 48, he was out there strictly for blocking purposes. So I don't hate him as a cheap option, Matt, 3,200. I'm not really in love with it. But again, 5 targets, if he can turn that into 4 catches for, you know, 40-ish yards, like he pays off that price tag pretty easy at 3,200. So he's definitely somebody I'm considering. But in terms of cash, he's probably more of a tournament play.
So Caden Smith here at $200. I can't ignore him because he was out in the field 48%. I don't know if you have his numbers or if he just doesn't exist.
No, I don't. Yeah.
I was about to say the numbers probably don't exist for Caden Smith. Yeah. But I will say this. This could be like a Trenton Cannon type play if he catches one ball and it exists. Again, he's only $200. So if he doesn't do a single thing, does he really hurt you? You know, not really. So if you're looking for a last piece, I don't hate Caden Smith as a complete punt play. Who knows? He could score a touchdown in the red zone. But at 6.3% ownership, I definitely prefer him for GPPs. But yeah, I don't hate him for a $200 play. Kickers. We can talk about kickers. I think this is another game script that does favor kickers, TJ.
Sure.
But the opposite side is going to be a little bit higher owned than Gano. Right now, he's showing 18.6% ownership. So I don't hate the defenses, and I don't hate kickers in cash games and small GPPs. I think you can agree with that.
Yep.
All right. Nothing more needs to be said then. Moving over to the Washington football team. Unfortunately, Ryan Fitzpatrick is out for, I think, a couple more weeks till week 7. Taylor Heineke's in the mix here, also the highest owned. The one thing about Taylor Heineke is he does have some rushing upside. I wouldn't say he's a rushing first quarterback. They definitely don't revolve.
Well, Lamar Jackson's a run first quarterback.
I was literally about to reference it. So he does have some rushing upside. I don't think there's a possibility he's going to be the optimal captain, however. But I will say this, he's going to be chalky in the captain spot for small GBPs and cash games, which means what, guys? Means completely fade him for GBPs in the captain spot. I think his wide receivers, Logan Thomas, has a lot more upside in that captain spot if they can haul in a couple touchdowns there. 10.2K though, TJ. Is he worth it to have in your lineup?
Yeah, it's a steep price tag there for Taylor Heineke. And Matt, if people don't remember Taylor Heineke, last year when he actually played in that playoff game against the Tampa Bay Bucks, he was absolutely electric.
He was a beast.
Yeah, so if you guys don't remember that game, go ahead and rewatch that. Yeah, he was absolutely fantastic. He left it all on the field. He was just hanging his nuts, kind of like Kareem Hunt right now on Prize Picks. So yeah, I like Heineke. He looked pretty decent against the Chargers when he came in. He played 71% of the offensive snaps before Ryan Fitzpatrick went out with that injury. He was 11 of 15 for 122 yards and a touchdown. Like you said, he does have some rushing upside. I think he's very smart with the ball, so I don't really expect him to have too many turnovers in terms of fumbling or throwing picks.
Yeah.
So I don't hate him at 10-2. There's a couple other guys in this offense that I prefer a little bit over him. But I think he is cash viable.
I think he's 1000% cash viable. I think you need to have him in your lineup as a core piece for cash, but for GPPs, you could get away with fading him, especially if you think the Giants are going to win this game. But yeah, like you said, he only threw 15 passing attempts in the last game, but that's because he came into the game late and did very well with the opportunity that was given to him. Threw a touchdown, 122 yards, 0 interceptions. Let's move on to the running back picture here. Antonio Gibson, the second highest owned on the slate, rightfully so, 9.6K. He was also a pretty good option for them last game. Got the ball 20 times in game 1 for 90 yards. Did not find the end zone, which is why he obviously didn't break the slate. But at 9.6, TJ, just because of volume alone, I do think he's cash viable. Do you agree?
Yes.
Yeah. Moving on to J.D. McKissick here. He logged a snap count percentage of...
Matt, I just wanted to say real quick, Antonio Gibson he'd be a lock for me at 9,600.
Okay. J.D. McKissick, 36.4% of the plays. Now, the one thing about J.D. McKissick is he is a catching back. He catches the ball a lot out of the backfield, which is a reason why I think he has some upside. So I'm assuming that you like him as well in terms of upside, TJ? At $2,200.
And I don't. Yeah, he played in 20 offensive snaps, 10 of them where he actually went out for a pass, or ran a route, rather. The other 10 were just in terms of blocking purposes. He did have 1 rushing attempt. So I'm not in love with him, but $200 if you're landing there, I don't hate it. Again, Matt, I think I'm going to try and get some of these skilled players from Washington, like Antonio Gibson, like Heineke, like you talked about, maybe Daniel Jones on the other side, maybe a wide receiver on the Giants. We'll move past it. We'll do that at the end. But yeah, no, I'd rather just be getting Antonio Gibson. I'm not in love with McKissick at 2,200.
Jarrett Patterson, also $400, barely saw the field. Same kind of thing with the other running back on the other side. Not really worth it, even at $400 in my opinion. He's also showing 9.1% ownership. I don't know if that's preseason bias because he killed it in preseason. So I don't know what it is. Moving on to the wide receiver, though. We have Terry McLaurin himself, probably the best player, I would say, on this offense in terms of overall skill. 37.7% ownership. Is he cash viable? I know that his matchup is not preferable, though.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at that.
Going up against James Bradberry, who had a fantastic week 1 here for the New York Giants. Absolutely shut down Cortland Sutton from the Denver Broncos, who had 1 reception for 14 yards on 3 targets. I would expect Bradberry to follow Terry McLaurin around the field and shadow him for a majority of this game. So I don't really love the matchup for McLaurin. You know, I'd like it a little bit more if Ryan Fitzpatrick was here. I don't hate Heineke throwing the ball to McLaurin, but I would just prefer Fitzpatrick, especially in this matchup against Bradbury. So I'm not personally in love with McLaurin, but you know, I do understand the ownership. Obviously, the most talented receiver that Washington does have. So if you are landing on him, I obviously don't hate it. But Matt, I don't know if I'm gonna be making him one of my cash
I feel like you have to pick between him and Antonio Gibson, and it's going to kill you one way or the other. Right. So Terry McLaurin, yeah, it'll be interesting. I think it will come down to lineup construction, and I will say this next person we're about to talk about is going to make it a lot easier to get in some of these guys. Diamie Brown, $1,400 is actually
with Diamie Brown.
He's showing the second highest owned on the slate for good reason, because he played 93% of snaps, and he's only $1,400. I think in terms of value, that makes the most sense. They ran out a bunch of 3 wide receiver sets. The other wide receivers barely played. It's between him and Adam Humphries, 22.3% owned. Does he make sense for a value play?
Yeah, you broke my balls on this before. Yeah, he does. He makes sense at 1,400. I think he allows you to have some flexibility in your lineups when you're constructing them. I'm not in love with the play, but again, if you do need a cheap option and a cheap piece, this is where I'm going.
Yes. I think for cash games,
you win, Matt.
It's going to come down to plugging in this guy. It is, because everybody's going to be on him. Also, Twitter bias, because everybody was talking about him today and already looking forward to the next slate. So Adam Humphries, 18.5%. I think this is your GPP play, especially if you're not playing Diamie Brown. You know, go right off of him, $4,800. He's really not that expensive, and also a decent wide receiver at that. So there it is. I don't think there needs to be anything else said about that. If you play him as a last piece in cash, I don't hate it as well, because, again, $4,800 actually is not that bad of a price for somebody who's playing 60 to 70% of the snaps. Moving on to the tight end position. This guy played the entire game, Logan Thomas. However, he did block a lot of those plays. But again, 100% of the snaps, $7,400, TJ, that's relatively cheap. He honestly might be my favorite value play, just in terms of sheer upside, combining it with the price tag. 22.5% ownership. He is a wide receiver, not a tight end. I love him here. Do you agree with that?
Yep. He's probably one of my favorate plays here on the slate, especially with
tight ends on Showdowns.
Yeah. I know, especially with Bradbury covering McLaurin for, you know, what I would assume would be what I would assume would be for, you know, the majority, if not all of the night here for the Giants covering McLaurin. So yeah, I love Logan Thomas at 7,400. I think that's way too cheap. And I think he's gonna have a pretty big game. I think he's gonna get a lot of looks here from Heineke. So yeah, I really like him. He would be a cash lock for me at 7,400.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be him. And for anybody who floods the comments and says that we can't build a lineup with all the guys we just mentioned, yes, you can.
Yeah, you can. I just did it. Yeah, I just did it. So.
It's not hard.
So shut up.
Dustin Hopkins, also a fantastic cash option. I feel like that's another great piece to land on, especially if you believe that they're going to win this game and stay ahead. They're going to settle for a lot of field goals if they have to. 20.5% ownership technically is what he's showing, but I don't hate him as a last piece. Let's now switch over to our favorite Prize Picks picks on this board. If you guys haven't signed up for Prize Picks, first of all, what are you doing? Enter code using DGF. Gives you a 100% matchup to $100. You simply hit the over or under of any fantasy point projection that you want. And there's also now prop projections. I can't keep up with these boards anymore. I can't keep up with my favorite plays because there's so many people to look at. They literally have everybody. So if you guys just want to have fun, if you just want to load up the board and simply hit the over or under on any one of these projections, the game now becomes a lot more enjoyable. And because it's the Washington football team and Giants tomorrow, you're going to have to play something. So go ahead over, enter code using DGF. It helps us out, helps you guys out. Let's now give away our favorite Prize pick here for the slate. TJ, where are you looking?
Yes, I am looking at Logan Thomas and the 46.5 receiving yards. I'm taking the over, Matt. Again, I keep talking about McLaurin in this tough matchup against Bradbury. So I think Logan Thomas is going to be the main guy and the main beneficiary from that matchup. So I love Logan Thomas. Give me the over of 46.5 receiving yards for the tight end.
I was going to give you the fantasy score of Diamie Brown, but the receiving yards are actually criminal. 27.5.
Matt is obsessed with Diamie Brown.
I was obsessed with the fantasy score, but that 27.5, what? All right, yeah, give me the over on that. I'm not going to give you the fantasy score. I'm a lot more confident here with Diamie Brown. That can't be real. Yeah, 27.5 is my favorite there. And that's it, TJ. That'll wrap up the video. I feel like we have so much more to talk about. I'm getting ready for NFL Sundays while I'm doing in my mind. But guys, if you did enjoy this content, please do hit that subscription button.
Wait, Matt, real quick.
Notification
Can you go to real quick? Hold on. Go to the board. Go to the rushing yard board
button. Okay.
Yep. Are you there? Scroll down to the 4th row, and I want you to zoom in on Kareem Hunt.
I don't think I can zoom in, but yeah,
All right.
I'll highlight it.
Highlight it.
Yeah.
That's all.
All right, I'll leave you guys with this question. In the comment section, please give us your opinion on what that picture resembles.
What is that picture?
What is that picture?
Is that zoomed in on his chin? Is it something